think what our life could have been like if we hadn't gone in there.
When the Jordan sisters look at their family album, they do not share fond childhood memories and laughter. They share sorrow. Sorrow for time stolen from their family, and for memories buried deep in their souls for 37 years. Secrets smothered in shame and fear.
I never told my girls. I never told my husband. I never told my mother. I never told anybody.
And I carried that through all the years and not being able to speak of it without feeling shame. Now today I feel anger.
The Jordan sisters' story of shame and sorrow begins in 1959 in Hinton, a small logging town in the Rockies 3 hours from Edmonton. Their mother, Mary Jordan, was pregnant with her 11th child. Her husband was often away working, cutting wood or driving trucks. Mary washed dishes at the local hotel and took in laundry to help pay for the extras.
It was a happy home. You know, every Saturday, Mom made sure that we had our treat. So we would go and have our quarter, go to a movie, we got to go to have a treat with it.
But despite Mary Jordan's efforts, the local social worker considered her school-aged children neglected. He described them as unkempt and filthy. On 2 different occasions, the Alberta government social worker warned her to take better care of her kids. And then on a cold February morning in 1959, he showed up at the door with an armed police officer.
She said, "You're not taking my kids." And they laughed and they said, "We're taking them." The police officer drew his gun, pointed at her.
And Mom fainted.
And the rest of us all jumped in front of Mom and said, "If you shoot her, you're going to have to shoot us first." And Mom slid down the wall, and I can still remember that animal-like cry that she had going down.
It was just like a wounded. She was so a horrible, horrible cry.
As their mother lay on the floor, the crying children were dragged from the house with only the clothes on their backs. The 5 youngest children were driven to Edmonton, where they were split up, and their lives changed forever.
We'd never been into the city before.
Their journey brought the 3 youngest Jordan girls to the O'Connell Institute, an orphanage run by Roman Catholic nuns, the Sisters of Our Lady of Charity of Refuge. The orphanage sat on the south bank of the river, its tranquility suggesting refuge for the soul as well as the body. The Jordan sisters' new home was shared with about 80 other girls, infants to teenagers. The Sisters of Charity were praised for their good works, and in return, people in Edmonton were generous with donations for the orphan girls. When the Jordan sisters were greeted at the door by nuns, 8-year-old Teresa was relieved.
At least we were going into this special house.
The doors seemed so big that many years ago. I can still remember them slamming behind us. And it was like closing us in from the world. And the nuns looking at us and saying, "Oh, everything is going to be just fine. You're going to love your new home."
Oh, I knew just in a short time that we came to a hellhole. Their whole personality changed. They were all of a sudden this really strict, commanding people. They weren't like the nuns that I knew.
The nuns told the Jordan sisters their mother had died, and now they would be their mothers. 3 of the nuns would have a lasting imprint as their new mothers: Mother Good Counsel, Mother Immaculate, and Mother Holy Rosary. There was a father, too, Father Daniel Martin, a priest who lived at the convent. They were servants of God who had taken a vow, promising refuge and charity to the little children placed in their care. But soon after arriving at this place of refuge, 7-year-old Marianne began witnessing things she couldn't even imagine.
People see them as these smiling faces. They don't see them as these people like the nun that took that little Holy Rosary, when she took that little girl by the hair and she swung her around and she just let her go flying across the room against the wall. She was just a toddler.
It wasn't very long before the Jordan girls themselves felt the wrath and the fury.
You'd get beaten for if you looked at them when you walked by them. If you didn't look at them when you walked by them.
There was a leather strap, and they would take this leather strap and they'd, with so much force. And when that wasn't enough, they'd take their shoe off, and they'd hit you with the shoe. They'd be kicking.
I mean, at 7 years old, if I thought of it, I made my bed good, you know, but if it wasn't made to their, Shirley used to help me make my bed all the time because, you know, I mean, if there was an imaginary wrinkle, they would tell us that, you know, and you couldn't see it, but they could see it. So, I don't know. I wish I knew why we got beaten.
Sometimes they knew a beating was coming when they talked back to the nuns or broke a rule, like the time Teresa knelt on the swing when no kneeling was allowed.
I was beaten severely, and that was all over the body. When I was beaten that time, Shirley did step in, and she jumped on, was Mother Immaculate's back to make her stop hitting me.
As the eldest, Shirley tried to protect her younger sisters, but by trying to take their beatings for them, she brought extra punishment upon herself. Sometimes she was locked in a cell, or even worse, taken to the basement to spend days in the place they called the hole.
Solitary confinement is you're away from everybody. No light, no nothing. It's just like a dark hole, and you have a mattress, no blankets, no pillow, just a mattress that's on the floor. And the mattress it smells of urine. It's all stained. And it's damp. And I pray a lot. Prayers seem kind of, you think, well, who are you praying to? They're not getting answered. So, I don't know, just kind of sing songs and kind of play. Just, your fingers or whatever, like try to see what was in front of you. Thinking of the things that we used to do when we were at home. Vision the mountains.
Back home, their mother was writing and sending presents. She sent stamps to her daughters so they could write back. Mary Jordan heard nothing, and then finally she did get a letter, but not from her children. It was from Child Welfare, returning her stamps, saying the department did not recommend correspondence at this time. The Deputy Superintendent of Child Welfare said, "The Easter treats and other chocolates were delivered to the children at their new home, and I'm happy to report they are well and happy in their new surroundings." About a year after her children were taken, Mary Jordan had a chance to see for herself. She brought her new baby girl to meet her sisters.
I remember opening the door and it was Mom. And I think that was when I actually knew that she was still alive. She told us to hang on, and not give up because she was still fighting to get us home. And I remember her telling us to try and really be good and listen to the nuns so that we could get home faster. and it would help us.
Their mother's visit was brief, and the children's joy briefer still.
We didn't even get to watch her go down the driveway or anything. But they took us and they told us, they said, "See, we told you she didn't want you because she could have taken you." They used to just play so many mind games with us.
As the summer days grew longer, the Jordan sisters were becoming more frightened. At night, they heard loud laughter and drunken parties just down the hall from their dorm. They say the parties were sometimes followed by visitors late in the night.
2 nuns would come in, and I'm not sure of the nuns' names. I know it was Good Counsel, one of them. And they'd take one of the little girls out of my dorm, and they'd hold a pillow over my face while they took this little girl out. And when she'd come back, she'd be curled up like a ball and hanging onto her doll and sobbing, and she would never talk to us and tell us what happened to her.
The Jordan sisters suspected Father Martin was at the center of it. All of the girls at the O'Connell would talk about him among themselves. They spoke of the sickening smell of alcohol on his breath and the stink of his big cigar, and about the strange games he played with them.
Sometimes he'd give us candies, and you'd have to hold your skirt out to him. The higher you held it, the more you got.
The girls also wondered why he never served Mass or heard confessions, and discussed rumors that he was no longer allowed to practice as a priest. There were even rumors he raped a girl and that he had to go to Rome for absolution. That rumor was on Teresa's mind one night when Father Martin accompanied 2 nuns to her dorm and stopped at the bed belonging to one of the mentally handicapped girls, Cookie.
Cookie had wet the bed, and she had a long t-shirt on. One of the sisters took off her t-shirt, slapped her on the back, and called her a stupid ass. And that priest was standing there looking. And my fear was, is it going to be me tomorrow night?
One late summer night, 8-year-old Marianne was awakened from her sleep.
There was both Annunciation and Immaculate was there. And they took me, and they made me have a bath. Because I used to wet the bed. And they said, Father Martin didn't like smelly girls. When they took me in there, and when he made me stand, and when he was lifting up my top and take my pants off, I would fought him, and I don't know, when he took a cigarette and he burnt me. He was trying to kiss me.
I caught her on Father Martin's knee, and I walked in there and I asked them what they thought they were doing, and I told Marianne to get off and come with me, and they grabbed me. They started pushing me back and forth and laughing and talking. They pulled my shirt off, and they were still making fun of me. And that's when Father Martin came over. And he put his mouth on my breast. And I wanted to scream. And I couldn't do anything because the nuns were holding my arms down.
And 2 other nuns, and I don't know who they were standing behind those other nuns and they were kissing. And I felt so horrible. I finally got away and I felt so awful, wondering why they did that to me.
I wish that place burnt to the ground.
Their nightmares only lasted another couple of months. In September 1960, 18 months after they were placed in the O'Connell, the Jordan girls were sent home. Their sister Edna greeted them at the door.
She screamed and she was saying, Mom, Mom, they're home, they're here. And I remember how scared, and we were still scared to get out of the car.
But even though the family was back together, the separation and the pain had changed them forever.
We became estranged. We separated. And that just seemed to keep on through the years. And it's just in the past while that we have come together. Like last year we went picking huckleberries. And we're doing the things that we used to do when we were kids, before we went to the convent. That unity is back.
It's a unity that has led them to stand together once again against the nuns. The Jordan sisters have taken a vow of their own to seek judgment through the courts. The sisters have hired a lawyer and are suing the Sisters of Our Lady of Charity of Refuge. They say the abuse they suffered during their 18 months in the O'Connell Institute caused deep emotional wounds. Wounds that are being reopened as they relive that dark time nearly 40 years ago.
I can say is you'd have to live it to know. I mean, after being beaten, put in solitary confinement, and in the lockups.
The Jordan sisters are seeking more than $1 million each in damages. Damage done to them that they claim has prevented them from having normal lives and relationships.
I want people to know what kind of people were running that place. I want justice. And I really do believe we should be compensated for the wrongdoings. They'll be admitting it because they'll have lost. And to me, that will help.
The nuns refused an interview for this story. The order denies all allegations of abuse. The Jordan sisters are also suing the provincial government, saying they were apprehended illegally from their home, and the government had a responsibility to ensure they were properly looked after once they were in its care. The Alberta government has also refused to talk about the allegations. Once word of their lawsuit got out, several other women also came forward.
Other people are going to hear it now. Other people are going to hear the story. They're not going to get away with it.
To date, about a dozen lawsuits like theirs have been filed against the Sisters of Our Lady of Charity of Refuge by women who say they suffered brutality and shame by the servants of God who promised protection to the small children placed in their care.
I can't think of any time that I was happy in there, that I didn't feel that fear.
Two of the nuns being sued, Mother Immaculate Conception and Holy Rosary, are still alive and living at the convent. Mother Good Counsel died at the age of 84. Father Daniel Martin died at 61. In 1966, the orphanage was closed and turned into a daycare, run independently of the nuns. Mary Jordan died at the age of 78, never knowing the story of her daughter's shame and sorrow. The Jordan sisters have married, raised families, and become grandmothers.
She says, Travis, you're an artist.
After burying memories of their time in the orphanage for nearly 40 years, they wonder if the day will ever come when they can put the painful experience behind them.
There was grizzly in the area.
Well, look at how we were last year.